Hi, I'm Dan P. with Infinite Lives, and we're looking at Y2K with
Andrew Allanson from Ackk Studios.
So, this game looks pretty cool. What's it all about?
Okay, so Y2K is a 3D turn-based Japanese-style RPG with Wario Ware style mini-games for combat.
Wario Ware style mini-games. Okay, like, is it like a ton of random mini-games and everything like that?
So they're not random, there is one mini-game for each attack that you do.
Okay. So, it says it's a postmodern RPG. What does that mean?
Okay, so we're inspired by the author Haruki Murakami, who's an amazing postmodern author. So we have some postmodern elements to the gameplay, which I can't say because everyone's gonna steal it.
Okay.
But I'll tell you one thing: is we explore the concept of intertextuality, which is basically when there is a something that exists within the game that is basically like a movie about a movie.
Yeah.
Our game is about basically a conspiracy theory internet message board that you spend a lot of time finding quests on in the game.
Wow. Okay. So, talk about the influence of the author you mentioned, and kind of like what other bits and pieces of other games or other media that you kind of put together to kind of make this game or come up with the concept for it.
Sure. So when we decided to make a game that took place in 1999, we wanted to figure out how we could have magic in a game like that, and without making it about wizards or something stupid like
Cyberpunk and stuff.
No, we didn't want that. So we were thinking about magic realism as a genre, which is basically where magic exists within reality, but isn't magical at all. It is just accepted as basically the nature of what is. So Murakami is a really great, basically, writer who incorporates magic realism. So basically we found ways, basically using a lot of his ideas to introduce the supernatural into the game without ever having to call it supernatural. There's other influences, some video games, Shadow Hearts, which is an awesome PlayStation 2 game. We sort of stole the Judgment Ring thing with our spinning vinyl. Paper Mario is a big influence. Lufia 2 from the Super Nintendo. Wild Arms 1 is another big influence.
So a lot of big Japanese RPGs.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I like the aesthetic of the game. It looks very clean, very kind of fluid. Where did you come up with that, or is it something kind of you always wanted to make a game that looked kind of like this?
We experimented with a bunch of styles. Brian, who did the 3D modeling, I think he did maybe about 15 different mock-ups of what the game would look like. And ultimately, we wanted to make something that looked like a HD Nintendo 64 game. And that's sort of how it looks to us.
Whoa.
That was one of the mini games.
Okay. Very, very cool. My friend told me I gotta come and see this game because it kind of looks like an updated Earthbound or something like that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I think one of the other things we were making the game was we get very depressed that Earthbound 64 never came out. So going back to the whole N64 thing, we kind of wanted to what would a Earthbound game have been like on the Nintendo 64? Obviously, our game is a little darker than Earthbound at times, even though Earthbound gets pretty dark.
We are indie games, all right.
That's true, yeah.
Go on.
No, so basically that was it. In terms of Earthbound, we thought about Earthbound 64. What would it have been like? And I think Mother 3 actually was a huge influence in the game as well.
So what's your part in creating Y2K? What's your part of it?
I wrote the script, I co-direct the game, and I did the soundtrack.
Awesome. So are you guys made up indie veterans, or is this kind of your first game you're kind of making for to be published or to kind of get it out there commercially?
This is our second game as a team. We worked on a Game Boy style action RPG called Two Brothers that was available on PC. Basically, we hired from people we met through college.
Okay, awesome. So I like to ask everybody kind of what your background is. I can we kind of went over it already, I felt like, but other than the JRPGs and all the big names and everything like that, what other kind of games did you play growing up? Not necessarily influencing this game, but just kind of what you liked playing or what you grew up playing.
I would say that the two biggest influences on the fact that I make games would be Pokemon Red and Blue. I would say the original Metal Gear Solid. And there's one game that I never actually played. I only played on a PlayStation demo disc called Grand Stream Saga. I played the demo and I remember thinking like, oh wow, games could really be this like adult and this sort of like, but also still have this sort of like Japanese anime feel to them. So that was a game that really sort of like influenced me to want to make games even back then. And I think I was like 8 when that game came out.
So I always feel like, certain games, of course, are easier to kind of show on a convention room floor, right? And, RPGs, I think, are it's a little tougher, right? Because an RPG, you got to put time into it. That's the whole point of it. So how do you kind of get around that, and kind of like what's been the reaction to people coming in to play a small slice of your game?
I think the only way to do it that we've discovered is to talk to each individual person who's playing the game, explain to them basically what exists beyond this little vertical slice of the game, have them understand that this is just one type of gameplay they'll experience in the game, and also make sure that people understand that it is an RPG, because our first demo we did, it took maybe about 3 minutes before you fought a battle. So we're like, well, we need to make sure they're battling right away. If not, they're not going to get the fact that it's a turn-based game.
So when is it coming out? Like how far along in development are you?
We just entered beta on Friday. We will be out this winter on PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, Wii U, and Steam.
Wow, awesome. Well, thank you so much.